Welcome back everyone to the video, and today we are talking about the New York Jets, not quite in the same context so that we've talked about them in the past. This team has been one of the most disappointing in the entire NFL this year. On the bright side though, it let me do a little kind of Halloween graveyard type thumbnail for 'em. So thanks for sucking, Jets, so I could do like a Halloween season thumbnail, I guess. But no, seriously, this team's bad. And it's crazy because I was actually very high on the Jets. I'm not gonna, say that as if I was in the slim majority. I mean, I think a lot of people were very high on the Jets. They have Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. It seems like, in the past couple seasons, the Jets had all the pieces there to where they really just need a quarterback to plug in and have everything just click and just, take off. And that hasn't been the case. And in fact, I feel like it's easy to almost still be optimistic just because of the names on this team, especially the offense. When in reality, I mean, they haven't really proven much at all this year. They're third in the division only because the Patriots are also in there. I guess they also won, or maybe it's the Dolphins behind them now at this point. I can't remember. That division is terrible. That's just the Bills and then everybody else. But still, the Jets have disappointed a whole lot. And I want to start with their record. They're 2-6, and you can look at that and go, okay, teams have made maybe not the playoffs after a start like this, but they've at least salvaged the season. And I'm not going to say the Jets can't do that, but I am going to go as far as saying, which I don't think is too much of a, crazy statement at this point, I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't think they turn this around and make this a postseason appearance. I think they could maybe make this season better than what it looks like right now, but I don't know because, like I said, I want to look at the record. They are 2-6. Those two wins, one is against the Patriots and one is against the Titans. They don't have any good wins. They don't even really have any games where they really competed very well other than the Bills game. I think the Bills game, the first game without Robert Saleh, they competed pretty well. You had Garrett Wilson over 100 yards, Breece Hall over like 120. Rodgers looked good. They lost, but it was a competitive loss. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe things are trending in the right direction. Nathaniel Hackett had his play calling duties switched to somebody else, and you kind of had this like, okay, maybe it's starting to kind of turn around. You bring Devontae Adams, and you still lose. And the games that you've won are over opponents that, aren't really good at all. Seeing the two wins there doesn't really move me. I think the only game they've really competed against a great opponent was the Bills. And I think when you look at a team like, I want to compare them to the Bengals. The Bengals are another team that have disappointed this year, that had very big expectations on them. But the only difference, there's a lot of differences, but the difference I want to focus on for this comparison is the Bengals' losses are much closer and much more competitive than the Jets' losses. And these were two teams that were, possible Super Bowl contenders, definitely favorites to make the playoffs, favorites in their division. So, again, Bengals have the Ravens in there, but still, you get what I'm saying. So, when you have the Bengals, it's like, okay, you lose to the Chiefs, you lose to the Ravens in Cincinnati, but those are two games decided by one score. I mean, the Ravens game went to overtime. They lost both games. It is what it is. And then you have the Jets where, yeah, you have the Bills game, then you also have the Steelers game where you played horrible. I mean, it was such a bad game, and it was a game where you added Devontae Adams. The Steelers just switched quarterbacks. This is a game the Jets can really go in there, make a statement win, and it was awful. It was such a bad game. And it's sad to me because I want to focus more on the offense. The defense definitely has its issues. I want to focus more on the offense because they have the bigger names that were in the headlines, but also because the defense, to be fair, they've been pretty banged up. So I don't want to focus on that too much. It seems a little unfair, but yes, they've been very bad. The Jets offense, though, has been pretty much healthy, and they've just been not very good at all. I do want to say Robert Saleh being fired, I don't understand because the defense looks way worse, even just whenever he was there. When he was there, was it good? Not really. They were struggling. They had some injuries, but they were still competitive. Without him, it's even worse. I don't know why that was decided when it was, but yeah. So let's go to passing. Aaron Rodgers has 1,896 yards as of right now, 12 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He has 7 interceptions already, and that was honestly the number I was thinking he was going to finish with all year. I was thinking he would have below 10 on the year for interceptions, and instead, he's already hit that about halfway through the season. So not very good at all. I mean, he's on pace for what, like 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's pretty bad by Aaron Rodgers standards, especially in this offense that has some great playmakers in it. You want to go to rushing. Breece Hall, 428 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's not bad. I think Breece Hall's a great running back. He's shown a lot this year. He's had some struggles at times, but that kind of, it is what it is. I do like Braylon Allen a whole lot, though. 187 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he seems to have a lot of potential, and I believe he's the youngest player in the NFL right now. So I love that. Going down to receiving, though, this is where it's really weird for me. So Garrett Wilson, 573 yards and 3 touchdowns. Again, it's not necessarily bad at this point in the year, but I think people expected more, especially touchdowns with Rodgers. Allen Lazard even has more touchdowns with 5. He has 412 yards. And at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I get that he has history with Rodgers, but Garrett Wilson should have been a focal point of this offense the entire season. In my opinion, he should be one of the yards leaders for receptions, receiving yards leaders in the NFL right now. I think that's kind of how everyone pictured that duo of Rodgers and Wilson. It was going from Rodgers and Davante Adams in the past. Now it's Rodgers and Wilson. It just never really took off like that. Lazard has shown, I don't want to say more than Garrett Wilson with Rodgers as far as the connection goes, not as a receiver, just so we're clear, as a connection goes. I don't want to say he's shown more, but I feel like he's been more reliable at times. Garrett Wilson had a lot of drops against I believe that was the Steelers, and they played pretty poorly. One of those drops even resulted in an interception, a very costly one at that. So it's disappointing. I think a lot of people that we didn't think would struggle are struggling, especially Mike Williams. I mean, he was great in LA. Tear his ACL, he really hasn't found his rhythm since then. It's been very rough for him. Breece Hall's been good in the receiving game, though. I think we all kind of expected there. Tyler Conklin, solid. But then Davante Adams, he's played 2 games now, only 84 yards. That needs to be higher. I mean, with the way this was all being projected, how he hasn't hit 100 yet, I don't know, in 2 games. Is 100 yards easy? No. But with Rodgers at quarterback and Davante Adams there, I mean, the first game he had, 30 yards? I mean, it seems like all these moves, like firing Saleh and bringing in Adams and all this stuff, it seems like it's all catering to Rodgers, and it's just not producing. You're not getting anything out of this. And so now I think the Jets have to look around and say, okay, we're 2-6. Is this season really a wash? Because if it is, now we got to look ahead to next year. And next year, I don't really know where you go from here, because this was supposed to be a championship level roster with a great head coach. Now you got to start over. You got not start over, but you have to find a new head coach now to plug in here. And you have to address what the issue is. What is the disconnect on offense that is causing all these issues? Is it Rodgers? I mean, in Rodgers' defense, he hasn't played in over a year, coming from an Achilles tear. It's a tough injury to bounce back from. But again, at a certain point, the excuses have to be put aside and just analyze this as just for what it is. And what it is a very, very disappointing offensive, roster. I mean, you can say not really roster, but offensive execution. And I think that's really the big issue. I think Rodgers has said it a lot this year. I think Saleh said it whenever he was still there, that the execution on offense just isn't there. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly what that is, but there's a serious issue, and the Jets have to figure it out. Because here's what I'll say. They're 2-6, right? What if they win out apart from 3 games, and they go 8-9? I think that's enough to where you can say, okay, because if that happens, if they go 8-9, I think in that hypothetical, you would think they would have figured out what the big issue is by then, and they can kind of address that, or maybe they're even past it already by the time the season's over, and then you can prepare for next season. But again, if the Jets finish with 4 wins, I don't know where you go from here. Rodgers is not a long-term answer at quarterback. You don't have a long-term answer at head coach now. We have no idea what to expect with Davante Adams. Garrett Wilson, I think, is great. I wish he'd be doing a bit more, but I can't put that all on him. It's just been very dysfunctional. Lazard is not a long-term answer at wide receiver. So, I don't know. I mean, you have Malachi Corley. He hasn't done much. He was a rookie. He's a rookie this year. Other than that, the Jets have a lot to figure out. I think this is officially another dead season as far as the postseason goes. I don't see it happening. Unless they literally win out apart from 1 game, 1 or 2 games, I don't think they make the playoffs. That's what they have to basically do to make the playoffs anyway. I don't think they would get in at 9-8, to be honest. The AFC is just too competitive. 10-7, they could probably get in. There's just a lot here that doesn't quite make sense for the Jets. And again, this is just focusing on the offense. This isn't even focusing on the defensive struggles. And again, they have some injuries. They've had some injuries this year, so I don't want to focus too much on that. But again, there is an issue. You have Hassan Reddick ending his holdout. He's coming back. That's good. But there's just not enough here. There's not enough here for me to look at this. And, let's compare them to the Texans, right? The Texans were another team this offseason that were very hyped up as far as the addition of Stephon Diggs, of a great quarterback. You bring in Joe Mixon. I think it was a similar narrative, not quite because the Texans are younger, but it was a similar narrative as far as what they could reach this year. And the Texans are producing, and the Jets are not. And the only real difference for the Jets was putting in Aaron Rodgers, who's a healthy quarterback, but you're not really getting any more wins than you have the past 2 years with Zach Wilson in there. And it doesn't really make any sense because you look at it on paper, this roster is way better. And I don't know. It's not coming together. The Jets have a serious issue, and to be honest, I don't even want to say what the issue is because I don't really know what it is. I think there's just multiple different factors all kind of creating the perfect storm here. But regardless of what it is, it's bad, and the Jets have to figure it out. They need to figure it out quick. You cannot have the same record as the Patriots. The Patriots were supposed to be the worst team in the league this year. The Jets were supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. That is one of the biggest disappointments that I think in the past few years, if that really happens, especially when you consider the Jets, what they did to accomplish this, what they did to get Rodgers, to bring in Devontae Adams, to fire the head coach that, he had the defense looking pretty good as far as his tenure in New York. So it's given up a whole lot to not really get anything out of it. You want another example? I guess you could go to the NBA. You can go to the Nets whenever they got Harden and Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Great team on paper. They didn't really play all that much even together because of injuries, and they amounted to absolutely nothing as far as wins go. So I think the Jets are looking like that right now. I mean, you are wasting Garrett Wilson's, first however many years now. It's bad. It's really bad. You have a lot to figure out. You have some older players now in this roster with Rodgers, with Devontae Adams. Adams is amazing. He's not going to be there for the next 4 years. I'd be very surprised if he was, to be honest. So, you got Breece Hall. You got Garrett Wilson. I think there needs to be some sort of planning for quarterback. Even if Rodgers puts it together, he's not your long-term solution. Even if you turn this around this year, you come out next year, whatever, you got to plan for the future because regardless, in the next 3 years, you're going to find yourself in the exact same hole you were just in whenever you need to try and get Zach Wilson, who, again, didn't help you out. I think it's a bad spot to be in. Look at what the Packers did with Rodgers was there. They drafted Jordan Love. Everybody thought it was ridiculous. Now the Packers are set up great, and I think the Jets have to do the same thing. I think you have to at least consider it. I know you drafted Jordan Travis this last year. Who knows what he's going to be like whenever he actually plays. But yeah, I don't know. Jets, this season's over in my opinion, at least as far as the postseason hopes go. You got to try and salvage whatever you can. I don't even think they should tank. I think you got to see what you actually have because there's a huge issue that they have to get figured out. If you're a Jets fan, sorry about that. Sorry to have to say it like this, but I think you probably knew it already. If you guys enjoyed the video, though, be sure to subscribe down below. It is free and takes just a second. I do pretty much daily NFL videos, although I kind of miss some days here and there, not going to lie. I do week picks. We do player rankings, team rankings, all that kind of stuff. We do draft content whenever that's coming out, which will actually be pretty soon. We'll start talking about some prospects. Not quite mock drafts, but, start at least getting some of that content in there. So thanks for watching. I do really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.